Today we have Brian McGinnis. Brian McGinnis is a Marine veteran and Raleigh firefighter running for U.S. Senate to fight for working people across North Carolina. After serving overseas and protecting his community at home, he believes government should serve the public, not wealthy donors or corporate interests. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us today. We are just so happy to have you with us, and I hope you're recovering well.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yes, I am. The staff at George Washington University Hospital took great care of me. I've got a little cast on here, but my bones are healing and everything's going well.
I am so glad to hear that. If you can walk us through what happened that day at the Senate hearing and what followed afterwards.
Well, everything is really easy to see from all the video footage. And I was there to, express my First Amendment right with freedom of speech and speak against, you know, what our military and our government has been laying the red carpet out for 2.5 years with the Gaza genocide, and now provoking and following Israel into this unprovoked war with Iran, following the schedule we, as Americans, all know, which has been laid out with just destabilizing the whole entire Middle East for Israel's benefits, and so just dealing with that for the last 2.5 years propelled me to want to make this statement at this level, and so it came to fruition. And in the process, I think my personal belief is, just God had it play out in a way that made such an impact. And my number one goal is to just try to make people aware of the unfair dynamics between Palestine and Israel, the unfair dynamics that America and just the unjust way America's exercising its imperialism and military might. It was just, I was very thankful to be able to speak out against that in that way and for it to make such an impact. And so yeah.
And what went through your mind when we saw Senator Tim Sheehy joining the officers and physically intervening in trying to remove you from the hearing?
At the moment, I didn't realize he had intervened. I had the ponytail officer right in my face, and he kind of had a fun, like a jovial demeanor to me. Even in that moment, he just seemed like he was coming to make an impact, and he went low and grabbed my legs and picked me up, and he just seemed not vicious. He was just kind of like, I'm doing my job, and I'm going to pick you up, and I'm going to carry you out of here, man. And so again, I was just focused on getting my message out. I didn't realize my hand was stuck around the corner, and I said my message, and by that time it was too late. And my arm was right there at the fulcrum around the back of the door, and I didn't really realize it broke until I just heard everybody else gasp and say it. And then I looked at my arm and saw it bending unnaturally, and I was like, oh, okay. And so yeah, Tim Sheehy is now looking back, he's caused my wife a lot of distress. I think just meddling in the whole process. He has no certifications to do what he did. So yeah. But at the same time, he's just I don't even care about him. I just want to propel our message of justice against the wars, unnecessary wars.
Yeah, and you had a powerful message and said that Americans shouldn't be sent to war for Israel. And we saw recently over 2,500 Marines being deployed to the Middle East. How are you feeling as a Marine watching your brothers fighting a war that is not theirs?
It's very, very conflicting. My nephew, he's a Palestinian who is in the Marine Corps, just enlisted, and he's there, and we're asking him questions about what's going on with you and where are you going to be deployed. And he's not going to Iran, but he has friends that are. And one thing he mentioned is that the Marines are hearing that this is going to be a meat grinder. This is going to be a very dangerous and harsh attack or harsh fight. And because they all know that Iran is established and been waiting for this and prepared for this. So, yet as a Marine myself, being enlisted same years, young years, 18 to 22 type of years, you're just a different person at that age. And then the Marines do a good job of, preparing you mentally for this type of, ultimate sacrifice. And so you're all in on it. And the work for us is to just try to, and I is to establish the reality of what they're fighting for. But I'm afraid they're just so close to the fight, they can't step back and see it. So I really kind of have to. I just think they're too far gone and too initiated into this system, and the fight for their survival relies on us on the outside to try to affect our government and affect the Americans to a critical mass to where we make enough noise to somehow make an impact to save those men and women from going to harm's way.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, we are seeing we're actually seeing a lot of veterans coming out and saying no war. They believe that this war, no one should be fighting for it. America should not be involved. And to see people, a small, I guess, majority of them celebrating this and wanting to send our sons and brothers to fight this is just we definitely do need to make more noise and more impact to try to stop this. I wanted to kind of just go real quick back to, because a lot of people are asking about the incident when your arm was broken by the Capitol Police. There was many of those in the Senate hearing that didn't turn around, that didn't phase them what was happening. And you're a Marine, you served your country, and this is the treatment you received. Like, what are your thoughts now, looking back, as this happened?
I know we as humans are conditioned to act certain ways and think certain ways depending on the environment we're in. In that quiet uh, briefing hall, everybody's got to stick up their butt and is really tight and quiet like they are in church or school, and so people are just set in this indoctrinated way of acting a certain way. And then also military etiquette is just so strict and disciplined. And so these military types, they stay disciplined and stay focused, and they're not going to let some, disturber or some activist or protester, we all are categorized or stereotyped to be just, just somebody to be dismissed and not listened to, which is changing, thankfully. But it was very dystopian, and but I understand how that happens. That people are just so stuck in their ways. But again, I hope that is is visible to all of us who are more that are watching and can see how the disconnect exists between our government, our military leaders, those that are at top, versus the ones who are going to take up arms, run towards the fight, and potentially make the ultimate sacrifice. And we have to see that disparity between these two groups, and the have-nots. We have to speak up, and we have to make our voice heard and say we're not going to just die for for Israel, for these for the billionaire investors that are going to profit off of this, and the ones that will never bleed for this cause. And so for those reasons, we got to continue this fight. So I wasn't surprised by their dystopian, callous, inability to react. I get that. I was in the military, and everybody's so just tight. So I get that. But I hope that the illustration that it showed will communicate to others, the disconnect.
Yeah, it was very, very powerful and very emotional to watch, especially to see how our veterans are being treated. We are sending billions to a foreign, like to Israel, and our veterans are not being treated in a way respectfully. They are not being given the benefits that they should be receiving. And I think many people are finally realizing this. And your message was very powerful, and that video has impacted many people all over the country and all over the world, for that matter. So I do applaud you for taking that stance. And I know it came with a lot of, backlash. For example, we saw a lot of criticism from those online for being married to a Palestinian, from name calling, from labeling you as an Islamist. What would your response be to a lot of these folks?
That's very misguided and unbased. My wife is a wonderful person. She was born in Raleigh, North Carolina. She's American Palestinian. And I've learned so much about the Muslim culture through her and her family's relationship. And I've just learned how normal they are and how wonderful they are and how they just care about their family and want to love their family and do good in their community and do good for each other. And it's just so normal. And me as a Marine in Iraq that went to Iraq, I had plenty of indoctrination to spook me about Islam and Arabs. And she tore all that down. She made that disappear. And so my experience being married and in love with my wife, who is an American Palestinian Muslim, I've got this unique experience. I'm trying to expand to everybody else and let them know she's not a terrorist. Her families aren't terrorists. And it's silly that I have to start at that point but that's how I know. That's what I know most people set. Me as an Illinois person did not have a lot of exposure to Muslims or Arabs. And I know there's so many people like me that just have never had any face-to-face experience with Muslims or Arabs. And so they only believe what they see in the news and the little headlines about, over the last 25 years about ISIS, Al Qaeda, and all the stories that has been drummed up from the 9/11. So just this long, drawn out, hardcore, hard followed story about how Muslims and Arabs are terrorists is just so obvious to me how impactful that's been for most of America's society. It's a big hill to climb, but that's the hill I'm climbing to try to show that that's not true. And we have more in common with Arabs and Muslims, and we can get along with them much more than the propaganda tries to make us think. So,
Okay,
and so yeah,
W.
people criticizing me for that the people criticizing me for being married to an American Palestinian is very troubling, because I remember when I first started speaking out for Palestine, I knew I might lose some friends, but I wasn't ever worried about them becoming violent at this large scale I'm at, and the people I've pissed off with my actions, and them coming to a conclusion that I'm an Islamist and I'm married to a Palestinian woman, and they're making a decision on what I represent against their America, their Trump America. Yeah, it makes me a little concerned about what people would think in their mind and want to do. But we step forward confidently and in strength and in hope and in love. I just hope for the best that we can still get our message across, because America's worth fighting for, and we as American people hold so much responsibility to try to wield our horrible government in the right direction. But we can, little by little, and I think we're making great steps and great.
Yes, we are making strides. And W, the Palestinian woman, I'm so proud of your wife and, her response and standing by you through this difficult time. I mean, we were all traumatized. I cannot imagine what your family went through. And I wanted to welcome Greg Stoker. Welcome, Greg. For those who don't know, Greg is a former U.S. Army Ranger and is running for Congress Texas 31. So make sure you guys also follow Greg. These are the faces that we need for those that say we do not want any money, no APAC money, and actually caring for America and for Americans. So make sure you guys follow both our wonderful guest Brian and Greg as well, and join the movement for making America a better place for all.
I just want to say hey to Brian.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's been a minute.
Hey, Greg, it's been a little bit. It's great to hear you, and man, I'm so happy to be able to run into you here and there now.
Yeah, I guess we're running on the same third party ticket for a federal office.
Yes.
When I tell people, it's going to be an uphill battle, but at least it won't be boring.
Yes, and we've got each other, so that's really great, man. I'm really thankful.
Absolutely.
To running uphill with you.
Yeah, I am so proud, to see you both and many others that are finally saying that we will put America first. It's been an amazing journey to watch, and I cannot wait to see what change you both will bring. Just real quick because I do want to open the conversation to hear from Greg as well, and fight about this war and saying no to fighting in this war, and no more wars in general. But Brian, if you can let us know, you're facing charges including assaulting officers and resisting officers. What are your responses to these accusations that we were honestly shocked to hear that you had these charges against you.
I have a good public defender, and I'm really confident that the judge or jury will see what happened and notice that I didn't resist or I didn't assault anyone. I was there to only speak my First Amendment right. So I'm hoping that that's what was found to be reality, and so I hope that's the case. And you're right, Taz. The American foreign policy has to stop relying on raw power and go into international law, human rights, and diplomacy. And that's what we're here to try to present and shift for America, America's global reputation. And that's very important at this moment. So that's what we're here to do.
And after everything that's happened that we heard, the injury, the arrest, the backlash, what keeps you motivated to continue speaking out?
Once you know,
Yes.
So I can't change. This is too impactful. The suffering the Palestinians have been going over, children. This little boy that got shot in the stomach, I think, and that was caught on a street camera, and he screams out, reminds me of my own son. Tony Aguilar had that same experience with witnessing that little boy. It reminded his own son. It's these little snippets that just bring it too close to home for you to ever forget. And so for this pain that we've witnessed secondhand, and so all respects to the Palestinians who are facing it day in, day out, second, for those, that's the spurring. That's when we're tired and we can't say, oh, I can't do this. We remember they're there. They are suffering right now. They've lost family. They've lost. So that's just a really huge source of strength that is just, back to if you know, you know.
Yeah, wow. That is such a powerful message. And yes, if you know, you know, and we're seeing more people finally waking up and knowing what the reality of the situation is. And I am just so happy to see it finally happen. It took a while, but the tides are turning. And, we're seeing folks like Greg. Greg, thank you for joining. I know you joined just a little bit late, but, we were talking about no new wars and how Brian, when he went out to speak and say no one wants to fight for Israel, he had all of these Capitol Police attack him, Tim Sheehy, and then resulted in his injury. What can, you are also running, for Congress as a no new wars, saying no new wars. We do not want any wars. What message can you send in, I'll go with Greg first, and then Brian, if you want to also chime in about this specific topic and how no new wars is important, even though our current president told us that he will not be having he's the no new wars president, but did not deliver.
Well, I remember getting so much flack. Was it like 2004 or sorry, 2020? I got flack 2004 too, by the way. No, in 2024 when Trump was running on the No New Wars platform, I was like, guys, he dropped more ordnance than Obama did on Afghanistan. He expanded like the war in Syria. Like I didn't think dropping more, because I did like 4 deployments during Obama's Afghan surge. And I didn't think it was possible to outdo Obama in terms of like drone strikes and heavy ordnance being dropped on like population centers and stuff. And it never got reported because like after the Syrian civil war popped off, no one was paying attention to what was actually going on in Afghanistan. And he started doing a lot of things before, like using diplomacy as a tool of political assassination, like he did with Qasem Soleimani. And there was a bunch of other controversial strikes that didn't seem very in line with being the anti-war peacemaker candidate. But also, Trump is the raw, unapologetic face of U.S. imperialism. He said before that we were going to go for the Monroe Doctrine 2.0 and reassert gunboat diplomacy in Latin America, all this other stuff. And the thing is, like, he is heavily ensconced within Zionist interests, both Israeli Zionists and Christian evangelical Zionists as well throughout his administration. So that they call and necessitate foreign interventionism. And it's not possible at this point for the declining U.S. empire to not have any new wars. We are not able to dominate the global economy through the leveraging and sanctioning of the petrodollar and cutting like Russia out of SWIFT, Iran out of SWIFT, Cuba out of SWIFT, like these economies, because how economic sanctions work, it's to cut a country off using our hegemony of the U.S. dollar so that it starves out their entire population, destroys the middle working class. So you just have essentially a bunch of peasants and the ruling bourgeois elite, and so it starts a popular revolution. That's what we hoped would happen with Cuba, with Russia, with Iran. This is how sanctions really work, but it's not really working like it used to. None of these governments are collapsing. Venezuela, we hoped it happened with Venezuela, but no, we had to send in Delta Force and then set up a relationship with Delcy Rodriguez so that she would be able to remain in power once Maduro is gone, and then we'd be able to start privatizing a lot of the Venezuelan natural resources. The administration literally thought they could do the same thing with Iran. And now we're stuck in this massive quagmire that we're unable to get out of. And what's really telling about why no new wars is such a radical position, people will be like, oh, you're a leftist who hates the military. Look at the Democrats. Okay, what pushback do you have from any of these military interventions from the Democratic Party? I grew up as like an East Coast liberal, like fourth generation Army guy. All of our politics were liberal. Liberals are not against wars or foreign interventions. There's this idea that like only neocons want that. No, Hillary Clinton, one of the biggest war criminals of our generation, hardcore Democrat establishment. So the most you see, and I think Brian can also say this, like this whole theater between Senator Mark Kelly and Pete Hegseth about Pete Hegseth trying to strip Mark Kelly of his like rank and retirements and stuff because Mark Kelly made this video with a bunch of other establishment NatSec Democrats that, U.S. soldiers need to follow legal orders. Okay. And there was a huge scandal. All right, cool. You learned that in basic training and boot camp, like whatever. This is not like something super controversial. And that is the extent of the Democratic pushback to the war, because they are also imperialists and they have the same donors and the same hedge fund and corporate interests control them as well as the Republicans. So all they do is like kind of condemn, the Department of War for doing war crimes in Iran and say we need to follow international law, but they structurally, bureaucratically don't do anything to fight it. So if this war goes poorly, the Democrats will be like, this was all Trump's fault. But if it succeeds and it accomplishes the interests of their donors, they'll just quietly, passively move on, just like they did with Venezuela. So this is kind of why we say it's the two-party duopoly, especially when it comes to no new wars. And Gaza has been the wake-up moment for so many people realizing that.
Yes, 100%. This delusion with, these two parties, and both of you now running independent. And I believe are you running under Green Party, Brian, as well?
Yes.
Yes. How does running for Green Party differentiate from both the Democrat and Republican?
It's the main difference is that we don't accept corporate donations or money from billionaires, and that's very vital because that's what's been influencing our government, and we've had to meander through those sources of campaign money in effort to solve people's issues without having those loyalties or those ties. We can just go directly to the source of the problem, use our government money to help people, the taxpayers that are paying that government money. And so this is a direct way to cut out all the bureaucratic money and so that's it. That's a really great benefit of the Green Party.
And if I may, to kind of piggyback off that, I think by just being third-party candidates, and we'll be controversial, like when it gets closer to like the actual general election, Brian's going to get like, video of his like arm getting broken and, being like married to a terrorist. I'm going to have footage of me being on the flotilla, getting detained by Israeli occupation forces. And I'm going to be a terrorist sympathizer. But what we can do is kind of the three pillars of like social change are agitate, educate, organize, right? So, we're just going to be able to agitate just by being third party and just by taking, quote unquote, taking other people's votes. And then hopefully we can educate people about the issues. What we need in U.S. politics going forward forever, the most baseline positions are no more corporate or PAC money, period. Like what? Like, how is that democratic at all? Also, no foreign wars or interventions that can be like justified. Obviously, they're not even trying anymore. And people need to be taught what they deserve. We have been generationally propagandized to believe like we pay taxes, but we don't deserve anything. We don't deserve access to health care. We are the only developed nation on earth without that. And it's becoming increasingly clear that we're not the richest country on earth. We're just the country with the richest people on earth. And they don't necessarily care about any of us. So the baseline position is you deserve things. When people talk about like healthcare and stuff, which is a big Green Party position, along with like environmental protections, no more foreign interventions, etc. People say things like, you are not entitled to other people's money. You are not entitled to other people's labor when it comes to like free healthcare. Just so you know, I've lived in other countries. No one else on the planet thinks that way except for us, because we've been so propagandized over generations. So It's like, what do you mean it's free? Nothing's free. We all collectively as a society pay for it. And what do you mean other people's labor? Like, yes, of course, the nurses work, the doctors work. They also get paid for doing their work. And it's part of having a functional society. So it's not like other people's labor, it's our labor. If these billionaires like Warren Buffett or the Koch brothers disappeared, like nothing would change. But if we all stopped going to work at hospitals and grocery stores and, government offices, in the entirety of our entire society would shut down. So when you say like you're not entitled to other people's labor, dude, it's our labor. This is a billionaire talking point so they can keep the healthcare racket going, which no other country on earth has. So I think an interesting thing about being a third party candidate who doesn't take corporate or PAC money is like Brian and I and some other candidates are able to say things like that because we don't have to worry about getting a donor phone call being like, I'm not donating anymore because I don't like what you're saying. Like, we're not going to have that. So yes, it's going to be an uphill battle getting people to start trusting or thinking about having alternative parties. Again, like every other country on earth, even dictatorships have the presence of third parties so they can maintain the illusion of choice. The fact that we don't have that is deeply concerning. And so we're going to use this election cycle to collectively try to move the ball forward.
Yes. And we have Anthony Aguilar, who's also running as an independent third party with the Green Party. Anthony Aguilar is Green Beret and is running for Congress, North Carolina's 13th district. Welcome, Anthony. Thank you for joining us. Anthony, you were there when Brian and witnessed everything that happened at the Senate hearing. What were your thoughts what was going through your mind witnessing, number one, obviously Tim Sheehy joining in on trying to take Brian down, and then also witnessing the aggression that was taking place towards a fellow Marine?
Well, on the day of that hearing, what was really important is that the hearing that we were attending was the hearing for the service chiefs testifying to the Senate on the readiness of the military, specifically with regard to the provocation of what was potentially going to happen in Iran. Remember, we hadn't started this war yet. So as we were sitting there listening to the comments from the various service chiefs, the Army service chief was asked, with consideration to these wars that we're fighting, where we still have troops in Syria, we still have troops in Iraq, we still have troops in Yemen, Somalia, Jordan, Lebanon. We're talking about sending 5,000 troops to Israel as part of this international stabilization force. We have troops in Venezuela. We have troops in Ecuador. If you've seen the news lately, we've just deployed special operations to Mexico. We have troops throughout Indo-PACOM. So if this war were to happen, are we ready? Do we have the readiness? And the service chief, the Army service chief, stood there and spoke to members of the Senate and said, yeah, we're ready. We have the right amount of people. We have the right amount of resources. And I was sitting across the room from Brian. He was sitting because it's in two sections, kind of like, imagine like if you're at a wedding and like they have the groom section and the bride section. So as you walk into the committee, the two areas to sit are sectioned off. So I was in a completely different section, sitting with just some other citizens that were there listening. I didn't know who the people were sitting around me. But when Brian stood up and spoke, I think it was historically such the most appropriate and perfect time to stand up and say that we don't want to fight and die for Israel. And really, you could replace Israel with any nation. But the fact is, the nation that we're fighting and dying for, at the behest of a government that is corrupt and compromised by the government that we're dying for, is Israel. So when Brian stood up and spoke, when he spoke, it was just, it felt like the perfect timing in him speaking up. And it didn't, again, people would say, oh, well, you go to these committee hearings and this is scripted, or you're prompted to do it, or you're part of Code Pink, or you're part of etc. And that's simply not true. Brian was there as a Marine, as a veteran. We had actually gone to the Hill that day not to attend this hearing. And I think Brian will tell you as well, until later in the afternoon, we didn't even connect the dots that this hearing was happening. We were there to talk with members of the Senate, particularly to commend some of them for being cowards in their inability to vote and pass the War Powers Resolution. So we weren't even there for this. And when we went to it, I was disgusted too, sitting in the audience and listening. And it wasn't just me. There were other Americans that were sitting there that were like, what? Like, how? Like, that doesn't make sense. So when Brian stood up and spoke in that moment, it was historic, and it needed to be said. And it needed to be said at that time in that place, because in that hearing, you had the service chiefs of all of the military branches. So that it was a historic moment. And then as the law enforcement, the Capitol Police were addressing the protest, and what everyone else all needs to understand is that it's not considered necessarily a protest. It's a they consider it interruption, or they consider it you're breaking the decorum. It's a violation of decorum. So in this case, typically when you go to the Congress, you'll see outside the front door, they'll say, hey, no cameras, no cigarette, no smoking, no cameras, no food, no talking, no signs. And when the committee hearing starts, the committee chair will usually reinforce that. In this case, there was no signs and it wasn't reinforced. So from my perspective, it's the exercising of your constitutional right. So when Brian stood up and spoke, and the Capitol Police tackled him and were dragging him out, they were very aggressive. I've seen instances like this before. And in fact, I've been on the receiving end of being arrested in Congress, and they seemed very, very aggressive and agitated before Brian even stood up and spoke. So I think there was this sense of vendetta, or this sense of frustration on behalf of the Capitol Police. But regardless of that, Senator Tim Sheehy, the Republican senator of Montana, who takes nearly $1 million in money from AIPAC, comes rushing down from the stands, from the dais, where the committee sits, and put himself into the situation. Not called upon, not asked for help, not law enforcement. He's not even a live action role play law enforcement on the side. He is not law enforcement whatsoever. He is a sitting senator, and he took it upon himself to inject into this. And in that moment when he put himself into that situation, and he brought his arm up under Brian's arm to push him out, is what led to Brian's injury. And that is a clear fact, as seen in the video, but by the eyewitness. And that, when Brian's arm was caught in between those swinging doors, no one needed someone else to jump in and interfere. And he did so because he was angry, but it also, I think that his AIPAC handlers probably expected or communicated to him that he needed to go down there and do something.
Or at the very least, I think it's kind of demonstrative of how everybody who supports this administration or this war just cannot handle dissent against it at all. Like, he heard Brian protesting, and something like, he got like a physical, visceral reaction to the point where he needed, as a sitting U.S. senator, to physically get involved. And I think that's very demonstrative of how they view this war, their position in this war. I think it was a really
also how they view the American citizen. But that's a great point, Greg. Yeah, I agree with that.
And then seeing how fragile their argument is.
Yeah, there is no argument anymore. We're not even pretending to try to bomb them into democracy at this point. So.
But you've spoken out before at Congress during the genocide and didn't receive this type of reaction or aggression. What do you think was the difference here?
Okay, so first of all, I was arrested during for disrupting Pete Hegseth's Senate confirmation hearing about like the war in Gaza and the recruiting crisis and stuff like that. And it was super chill. I got crowd surfed out by 6 cops, and they weren't like violent at all. And they were also like ready for that, but I don't know, like watching the video from Brian's action, like they were already kind of like twitchy and ready to go. And I haven't seen that level of violence outside of like a street protest. To see it inside Capitol Hill was absolutely wild.
They would have to take a second to figure out their strategy with you, Greg. You're quite large.
During Hegseth's confirmation hearing, there's everybody that was there was like veterans for Hegseth. So it was a bunch of like Navy SEALs who all had their veterans for Hegseth hat on, and I had my old like fatigues on. They're like, "Who is this guy? I bet he's going to get mouthy." But no, it was definitely nothing like what just happened, and I think it's a direct response to what this completely unfounded war in Iran is like doing to us psychologically, like as a nation, or at least people who are involved in politics are.
Brian, it's a pleasure to meet you. Greg, Anthony, good to see you. Combat vet, welcome. From the daughter of a Beirut Marine and a Palestinian American at that, Semper Fi. I'm not sure if anyone understands how powerful it was to hear your rendition of the Marine Corps hymn, because there was nothing more American in that moment. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, Palestine will be free. You brought tears to many of us. We are so proud of you. I salute you. My question is as follows. Given how quickly the Marine Corps distanced itself from your case after the senator broke your arm, and considering the timing of your public support for Palestine, how do you interpret the institution's decision to protect its political relationships instead of defending you as a Marine under its care?
They're so in deep with this, Israel support and whatever huge geopolitical consequences are related to it, that have no regard for. It's showing that they have no regard for even military veterans or the American public citizens, and it's just their stance is showing. And so I'm glad to expose that. And I think more and more Americans are seeing that we don't matter to them. They have an agenda. They're not interested in hearing our opinions about that. And so that's how I stand there. And it's concerning to be villainized as a unpatriotic person just to speak against war. But I think this is giving me an opportunity and my fellow veterans to speak about the realities of war and what we're trying to keep veterans and military people from going into. And so this is just, I think it's just a great exposure, a moment.
I'm not sure if you're able to discuss any of the details, but do you plan on...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
Guys, if you can please avoid face gifts, but thank you, gifters. I'm not sure if you're allowed to discuss the details or not, but do you plan on suing?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that yet. Sorry.
Yeah, don't do it.
Understood.
No, I totally understood. Thank you, Linda. I think we also have somebody that wanted to chime in. Combat vet, could you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, I go by Combat Vets Against Trump because it pisses off the MAGA. But my name is Tom. I am the co-founder of Fight Against Fascism organization, and hopefully we'll be working with About Face in the coming future. I have a meeting with you guys tonight. And I just wanted to say, when we stand up for our oath to the Constitution, MAGA immediately disowns us as Americans and calls us unpatriotic, as we see with Brian and Greg and the rest of us. And we're trying to show America what patriotism really is. And it's really sad that when we actually stand up for the right things, that America is seeing us as the enemy. And this administration, and like Greg was saying, that the Democrats are also meddling with the enemy as well. And it's really sad that we are at this point in our history, and they're using Gaza as an experiment to what they're going to do to this country with, our current immigration system. And I commend Brian and Greg and everybody on this panel for their contributions to what's happening in this world. And I definitely understand what Brian has gone through and being treated as a enemy to the country when you stand up for what's right. I've been assaulted by MAGA, just protecting myself against them, and it's sad. It's crazy where we're at today. We have insurrectionists being let free, and then we have hardworking people in this country being demonized and thrown into detention camps, and we're literally sending money to unalive people in Gaza. I mean, it's disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Combat Vet. I wanted to get what your message, Brian, Greg, Anthony, about those that are thinking of serving or are currently serving and that may be deployed out to the Middle East to fight this war. What would your message be for them?
Right quick, just want to shout out to combat vets. I love people who have set up these organizations where we all can, once we become awake, file into. So shout out and props for that. As far as a message to the militaries that are the military soldiers, men and women are going to actually, to go to fight potentially. Is that what the question was?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it was. What is if those that want to serve or those that are currently active duty and that are going to be sent to, let's say, if they're going to be deployed to the Middle East to fight this war, what would your message be for them?
My message as a 44-year-old, 25-year plus removed from the military, message would be to become a conscientious objector, because we are aware now that our government doesn't serve the people. The government is going into this war for a foreign nation. The government has got so many contracts lined up to profit from this, and that profit's going to stay at the top. It's not, and the people in the below are going to die for it. So that being the true reality of what this situation is, I have to refer to Greg to talk about that website that soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen can go to to find resources in order to follow steps and to be a conscientious objector. Because I understand the unpatriotic flack that we could get for promoting this, but I don't care. I think this is important. I think these wars are going to be very violent, the death toll will be great. And I think it would be wrong to not present that. Conscientious objection should be a mainstream choice for many military men and women right now.
Yeah, so to talk about what that means, I go onto Twitter a lot, which is not good for one's mental health. And, I post about conscientious objecting, and people are like, they're going to go to jail. No one's going to jail, dude. So first of all, after the global war on terror, everybody accepts that Vietnam was a mistake. We shouldn't have done it. Iraq, Afghanistan, we all know that now. And we all know that we saw a boom in the defense contractor industry. Half the Pentagon's budget actually goes to private contractors. And before we even invade a country, you have hedge funds bidding on post-war reconstruction. People like to talk about the defense industrial complex. Well, on the back end of conflicts, it's not them. It's the real estate lobby, the same lobby that says everybody in Gaza needs to die or be displaced so we can make a Dubai 2.0. And it's the same lobby back here that buys up all the houses for pennies on the dollar after the California wildfires or a major disaster event. All these things are connected. So after 20 years of the global war on terror, where at least they had the quote unquote decency to lie about democracy and nation building exercises, now they're not even doing it. And so I think I agree with Brian, the only path forward, if you have an issue with this, is a conscientious objector. So if you do something against UCMJ in an act of protest, you're going to get the hammer at this point. But conscientious objector is a completely legal avenue that was created in response to a lot of things that happened during the Vietnam War, including fragging. If you know about it, you know about it. So this is not something they teach you about when you're in the military, but you can essentially, if you're an airman, soldier, sailor, Marine, drop a conscientious objector packet, which means, you talk to your commanding officer, a psychiatrist, and a chaplain. And if you're morally consistent on your objections to military service, you get out of the military and then you retain all your benefits based on time of service. So you have access to your GI Bill in a lot of cases if you've done enough time. You have access to VA healthcare, stuff like that. And they don't tell you about it because they don't want you to know about it, but it's a completely legal mechanism that has been around for decades. So if you know anybody, you can go to the Center for Conscience in War. The executive director, the new one, is Mike Preisner from the Empire Files. He was one of the first big veteran voices during the opening days of the Iraq War. He's now running it, and I talked to him. Apparently, they have the most requests for assistance with conscious objector packets than they have in their entire decades-long history.
He said they're overwhelmed with the amount of calls that people have been that they've been receiving. And Greg, if you can just real quick, you mentioned fragging, and we've been hearing that all over. If you can just maybe let people know what that is.
It was a thing during the Vietnam War where, wildly belligerent officers would mysteriously get killed. So, we can talk about that. I'm not sure I want to talk about it on TikTok, but the new version of it apparently is sticking shirts down the plumbing of different ships.
Yes.
So, there are other acts of resistance. I would say that it's less risky for you to just drop a conscience objector packet, and if enough get dropped, this will become a serious issue for the military. So that's the safest way to do it, and that's the only thing I am advocating for officially. So,
I don't know have you heard anybody here on the panel about some of those that are currently deployed or that are at the bases overseas in the Gulf states that they are revolting. Have you heard that as well, or is that just fallacy?
They took everyone's phones and they have shut off the internet in a lot of these places. So there's a pretty good media blackout on it. So I haven't heard anything. I wonder if Anthony has.
I have not heard anything in terms of the overseas bases where there are active protests. It wouldn't surprise me. I do know that here, CONUS-based or within the continental United States home base, that there are some, I wouldn't say protests or resistance, but an active measure of soldiers in a high quantity that are exercising their rights in terms of conscientious objecting or calling out certain things. And here's what I will say to everyone thinking of serving, everyone thinking of going into the military service. Do not obey in advance. Do not place your constitutional rights on the table and say, here it is, I want to fight for this. I'm telling you, what this war is and what the wars surrounding it are not for our constitutional rights. They're not for the protection of the Constitution. They're not for the protection of American people. It's not for red, white, and blue and grandma and apple pie. It is for billionaires to become richer, and it is evil, and it is illegal, and it is and there's no justification to it. And history will prove. I posted something a couple days ago that, let's remember that in the Nuremberg trials, I was just following orders was not an excuse. And if you look at the those that are in right now, exercise your right to conscientiously object or to make your grievances known in writing. To just go along with it is not sufficient, and it will not prove well in history. And what I call on also to all of the general officers and flag officers, or the guys that wear stars on their ranks in the Navy and throughout the military services, that the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, stood up on the podium and said that no quarter, that is directly, that is not, ooh, that doesn't sound good. That is a war crime. No quarter is to say that.
Yeah, to say it, even to say it.
That is a war crime. And that
he
came
said
from
no quarter?
No mercy, no quarter.
No mercy, no quarter is what the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said in his remarks last week in one of the updates. So that is a war crime. That violates not only U.S. law, it violates Geneva Convention, but when you look at how it just straight up violates these laws, any military service member that continues to serve right now, especially at those ranks of general officer, flag officer, who heard that and are continuing to serve this war, are right along with him complicit in those war crimes. There are no excuses. There are no, I was just following orders, or, hey, I made my grievances known, but then I just had to go along with it. So, I call on folks like General Dan Kane and Admiral Brad Cooper and the geographic combatant commanders and the service component commanders to stand up for your soldiers, for your servicemen, for your soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and do the right thing morally and ethically and legally, because history will judge. And we have it, it's the world has heard this. When you hear, or when you look at the tactical implications of this, let's just not look at the implications of the strategic environment where the Secretary of Defense said it. Let's look at the operational and strategic implications to where we had a children's school killing nearly 200 young schoolgirls, and there's been no accountability. That's because of the attitudes, the perceptions, the policies of this administration and this Department of Defense. And if service members think that history will judge you favorably, and then when this war ends and the United States has lost, and we are the ones with hat in hand trying to make amends and appeasement, that you will not be held accountable, I'm telling you, read a history book. Crack open a history book and read it, and see those that were held accountable and those that will be held accountable. In the moments of their sin, they never thought they'd be held accountable. They will be. And every service member that's going along with it will also be held accountable. And I say, object, do not join, do not go fight this war. You are being led to the slaughter, but you are also being set up as the proxies and the puppets to take the fall for this evil regime.
And I would like to just say, too, there's other ways of accountability. There's also social accountability. In years from now, talking about being involved in the war against Iran is not going to be a good look that you're going to want to be associated with. There's a lot of Vietnam veterans who got spat on. At least they had the excuse that they were drafted. Now this is very much a war of choice that doesn't benefit the American people at all. And if you don't want to get treated in the future like IOF soldiers when they get found out here in the United States at restaurants and stuff like that, this will follow you for quite a long time, because people are done with this too. So it's not just the legal ramifications; there's also social ones as well. And
you also think about the people that are telling you to join or go fight and die. Donald Trump, who dodged the draft. Steve Miller, who's never served in uniform. So all of these individuals that are saying, go, fight and die. It's great to fight and die for Israel, have never served. So for all of you parents that think that it's patriotic for your sons and daughters to put on that uniform and go fight in this war, it's not. It's not. It is not patriotic, noble, or good for the nation to go fight in this war or to serve this military at all. So stand firm and realize that patriotism in this moment in our history is not going along with the flow. Patriotism is standing up against this evil and protest and objecting and not dissenting, or excuse me, and not just simply going along with it, but to dissent. Dissent is our duty.
Yeah. Wow.
And to touch on that too is the original point about the soldiers revolting and stuff.
One second. Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. 1 second. The Daily Rumble. Welcome. If you could just introduce yourself. I know you're also new here on the panel. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Daily Rumble here on social media. Good friends with Tony, and trying to get Brian right now. I reached out to your campaign manager, so hopefully we can set you up to get on my podcast. Greg, we've been talking. We're gonna hook up here soon as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for letting me on here. I was actually
welcome in.
Just getting ready to get off TikTok, and then I came across the live, so I wanted to jump in real quick. I wanted to touch on your point about the soldiers' morale overseas right now. We are getting reports that the morale is actually quite low, that they don't want to be there. But what we do have is verified reports of Sergeant Tyler H. Simmons. He was 28 years old, tech sergeant. He was one of the tragic members who lost their life on the KC-135 refueling tanker that crashed. His family's come out staunchly against Donald Trump, saying that they didn't need to be there. This war is unnecessary. And they're actually encouraging people to go and vote in the ballot box against this war by basically, throwing a blow to the Republicans in the midterms. And so, there is that. There is a lot of family members right now of active duty soldiers who are over in the Middle East who are terrified that their son or daughter is going to come home in a box for a war for what? To hide the Epstein files, to get everybody to stop talking about it? Because if you notice, nobody's talking about the Epstein files anymore. We were all talking about it was nonstop Epstein files. And there is that leaked audio. Now, some people say it was AI. Some people say it was real. No way to verify it. But Donald Trump a couple months ago saying, I don't care what you got to do to get rid of these Epstein files. I will start an effing war if necessary. And the point is now, a couple months later, he has started a war.
Yeah, we've been preparing for this for a while, though. And just 1 second, like, even if people vote out the Republicans in the midterms at the ballot box, they've already got the ball rolling. The Democrats will just keep this thing going, too, because they have the same donors and the same corporate interests. And I'm not just talking about AIPAC. That's a tiny fraction of the overriding system. So, yeah, now it's going. It's going. Just to put that into perspective, because there are two like chessboards going on. There's the regional chessboard that like Israel, Turkey, Saudi Arabia plays on, and of course that's wars about that too. But there's the more global chessboard, which is between the U.S. and China for great power politics. So the war in Iran is also about isolating China, destroying their like BRI project in the region, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's not just about that. Like a lot of the neocons are pushing this thing not because they just need Iran to fall, but it's ultimately about our global beef with China as well. So that's a piece that like a lot of people need to know.
Yeah, I actually just made a whole video about that. So when you go to the midterms to vote, when you're even in the primaries right now, we got primaries in a day or so in Illinois, make sure that you're looking at the candidate. Are they taking corporate PAC money? Are they taking military industrial PAC money? Are they taking APAC money? Are they staunchly against this war? Are they not? That's very important because right now, like in Illinois, I think APAC itself has put some $20 million into the primaries over there. So, and we've got two guys on this panel right now, Brian and Tony, that are running for Congress right now. So they know what their opponents are doing and what kind of money's flowing in. So yeah, everybody that's watching, if you're going out to vote in your primaries and then the midterms, you've got to make sure you vote the right person, because just voting Democrat, well, you're probably just voting a warmonger.
And this is why you have to, not accept any corporate or PAC money, because even if, you're not taking J Street or APAC money, any big lobby is going to have aligned with like Israeli or Zionist interests. That's just how our current system works. So this is why the baseline position now just has to be no more corporate or PAC money, period.
Thank you, the Daily Rumble. Just going back to Hegseth's statement, if one of you gentlemen can elaborate on what no quarter means to those who didn't understand.
So the reason it states it in the military manual, military law, but again, I want to clarify, it's not only military law or international law. It is also codified in U.S. Code Chapter 18. So when you look at U.S. law, all of our laws are codified, or the laws that derive from that are chapter 18 of U.S. Code. But there's also the United States Code of Military Justice. And to make that specific statement, to not allude to it or to not make statements that somewhat give allusion to it, but to state it is actually the crime. No quarter means that if you are in battle or in war and you have prisoners of war, that you kill them. You take no quarter, meaning with prisoners of war or prisoners on the battlefield or those that you've taken in your custody on the battlefield, that you provide no quarter, meaning you kill them on sight, which is an atrocious and egregious war crime. And the reason it matters is because the United States engaged in war, the world, other nations engaged in wars, is that these are the expectations of international. For example, if the no quarter would mean when the sailors that were taken by Iranian patrol boats, and you saw sailors on the U.S. sailors on the decks of these Iranian patrol boats, no quarter would mean that the Iranian Navy just lines them up, shoots them dead, and kills them where they are. That's no quarter. It's a violation of international law. It's a violation of our own laws. It's despicable. It's disgusting. And anyone that's ever served in war who thinks that to kill a prisoner of war, or that to kill someone that is no longer a combatant, and they think that that's okay, or they think that that's, yeah, so be it, then I would call you a coward. And I would say that you've never served on the front lines and realize that that is absolutely despicable behavior. And it's also, what I want to emphasize, it's illegal. Imagine just going up on the podium in front of the nation and saying, hey, as the Secretary of Defense, I'm telling all of my soldiers to go out and rob banks. What are you doing? Like, he's not some talking head. He's not some pundit. He's not some influencer on social media. He is the Secretary of Defense. What he says to our service members is a direct order. So him doing that is a war crime. And every service member from the 4-star rank down to the private should say, no, that I am not participating in this illegal act of criminality.
Yeah,
and Tony, to touch on that too.
I will remind everybody too that one of the reasons we have these things in place is so it can't happen to our soldiers as well. In your analogy with the soldiers on the Iran boat, and one of the things, like when they started building the case against Israel, and like what is the proof of like genocidal intent, it's not necessarily what the soldiers on the ground are doing, because it's hard to see that through the fog of war. So one of the main ways that you kind of prove it and start building a case is by what people in positions of authority actually say, because that's the biggest hint, or the biggest marker that this policy is institutionalized. Genocide has to be institutionalized. And the one way that you can start building a case off this is by what the leaders are saying out loud. This is why when like the ICJ case against Israel is surprisingly clear cut, is because Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu are just saying it out loud, and they are holding the reins of power. So when Pete Hegseth, as the Secretary of War, like actually comes and says, like, we're not giving out any quarter, as Tony said, like, it's completely institutionalized. And, you know, even like company commanders down to NCOs, down to privates hear that, and they're like, okay, fine. I mean, he's saying it, Trump's saying it, they're going to have my back. So it's just an absolute complete mess. And I would just going to say one more thing. All of this has been normalized. I've been talking about this since like October 10th, 2023, when they started indiscriminately saturation bombing Gaza. I was like, hey, if we're going to start hitting these civilian targets and not worried about civilian casualties or journalists or paramedics, nothing's protected anymore. This is going to normalize modern warfare going forward forever. And so that's kind of like, oh, another girls' school was bombed. We just committed like scholasticide in Gaza. Like all of this has been building to a whole new era of lawlessness in war. And now the entire world is completely less safe. And we know, like all three of us as like combat veterans who served in, you know, a bunch of completely problematic wars, whatever we do overseas in some way always comes back home to our own citizens. So I just
Great. That's what I wanted to touch on too, is so you have comments during Trump's first administration when we had the protests in DC telling his generals, well, can't you just shoot them in the leg? And now you have them setting up these rapid response forces here in the United States for protests. They're desensitizing our troops to this no quarter theory. And then what happens when they start using that on us here at home? So it's not only just that it's an issue overseas, but it's a direct threat to the citizens of the United States, isn't it?
I mean, look at Minnesota. They've already unalived multiple civilians,
Exactly.
egregiously. So it's already here. You know, like I said before, I don't know if you were like in the comment section or not. What is happening in Gaza is the stepping stone of what they're going to do to Americans here, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they it's almost like they desensitized everyone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes.
what's allowed to happen everywhere else will eventually come home. I wanted to ask you all, Greg mentioned that this is a war of choice, which I fully agree with, but under this current climate, rather, what does it look like? What are the consequences to defying direct orders?
Brian, did you want to, whoever wanted to? Yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
say
Brian.
something. First off, any military people who are seeing this, it would be such a brave act to actually resist or become a conscientious objector at this moment. I mean, I remember when I was such a young, naive person. It would take an immense amount of courage to, go against the grain at that time. So if anybody is thinking about it, I would just encourage you, and you would have I mean, a place to come and support. We're all here for you. And it would just show incredible courage for you to stand against such immeasurable pressure to go along with everybody else to go forward into this. But so I would just want to try to give props to that. And that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and it's not defying orders if you drop a conscientious objector packet. If you're just watching this and didn't see the earlier part of the live, go to the Center for Conscience and War, and they'll help you out with all that.
Thank you. I also have one more question for Brian, and if Greg, combat vet, and Anthony want to chime in. Based on your experience inside the Corps, what indicators have you seen that suggest foreign governments or lobbying groups have an outsized influence on when and where American troops are deployed?
I don't know enough about the higher ranks and the large the top ranks who make these decisions. I'm just more minded with the troops and the families. That's where my my heart and mind go to. I do want to mention this in relation to all this military mental stance or position. When I did an interview with the real Clyde at Arlington Cemetery, and it was right after I had been at that hearing, and I was noticed by 9 people. And two of them were substantial military guys. One was a officer in the Army, and he was big and strong. And he came up and shook our hands, and he said, "It's changing. The culture in the Army is changing. The officers are trying to stop the shit from rolling downhill. They are trying to stop it where it is. They're having real conversations about what the real meaning of these wars are, and they're not having any dissension amongst the other officers." So that was a really awesome thing to hear. And then I met another warrant officer and her husband, who was a enlisted man, and they just were supportive. And they said, "We need this. This is how we feel." And so those are just 2 positives in the realm of the military's attitude.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just kind of how it starts. It doesn't seem like the people in power, when I say it doesn't seem like, it's not going to stop. And a lot of these generals too are really dialed into the upper echelons of the military industrial complex. They want to toe the line until they get out of their service so they can go revolving door their way into like General Dynamics or Raytheon or something like that, and not be cut out of the fold of the entire overarching system. So we could talk about foreign lobbies all day, but the US government has been doing stuff like this since its inception. So yeah, I kind of get frustrated when people just like focus on AIPAC and not like the actual history of US interventions. It's just kind of leaving out most of the puzzle. And I get it. Like focusing on foreign lobbies and foreign interests is like for people just getting into this, it's something easy to grasp and conceptualize it, because understanding like the larger overarching system, the geopolitics behind everything and the different interest groups takes like years to establish like a baseline of knowledge. So yes, people focus on AIPAC, but really it's just way, way more complicated than that. And when you start thinking about when you start waking up to this, you can go one of 2 directions, right? When people see what's happening and start waking up to like the whole Palestine issue, you can go like, oh my God, this is our overarching economic and political system dominated by billionaires. And the other way is to just go, oh yeah, it's AIPAC and the Jews. And you're totally being a useful idiot when you do the second one, because you're not actually questioning the overriding architecture of power, and you're just blaming foreign lobbies instead. When it's at home, it's always been at home, even before we had such an entangled relationship with Israel. It just really doesn't make sense in my opinion. So that's the only thing I'd like to say about foreign lobbies. Yes, they are outsized in their influence. Yes, these foreign lobbies are completely problematic, but historically, it doesn't change how we have operated at all. So
to touch on what Greg said there is very poignant, because the military-industrial complex is actually the biggest threat to democracy here at home as well as around the world, because there's a little-known fact that a lot of people don't realize. The munitions that we have in our stockpile, they have a shelf life. And it costs these corporations who make these munitions and the federal government more money to have to disassemble them safely. You have to take all the bits apart, you have to take the explosive stuff apart, and then you have to safely be able to dispose of that. That costs way more money than to just launch it at an enemy. And so there's always been this military industrial complex pushing Congress and the president into more foreign interventions, because that way we can then expend these shelf life munitions and then we can replenish them. So the corporations, the military industrial corporations, it's a revolving customer that just keeps coming back. It's like fast food. You just can't get enough, but the food's going to go bad. So you've got to make sure that you're able to sell it. And then that way the people keep coming back over and over and over again. So like I said, I agree with Greg 100%. The foreign lobbies, yes, they do have an outsized influence on our government, but it's actually our own corporations that are the biggest enemy here.
That has enlightened me so much in this very moment, given that, I've been so focused on Israel's meddling in our government and leading us into this war, but our own government is finally giving me some traction to understand how our own government is going to willfully take their bidding for that military industrial complex's, reasoning to expend these bullets and these munitions. And Anthony, Greg, I know we've wasted so many rounds just to shoot, just to expel. They just give you buckets and buckets, and it's fun and it's great as a person to shoot, but it's so wasteful. And so that's just one more, more evidence of how the military industrial complex just wants to shoot them out. And that's America's biggest export.
Yeah, but it's also not just munitions too. A lot of the lobbying that the military industrial complex does is for like future threats, research and development. Now we finished the fifth gen X like stealth fighter bomber. Now China's trying to make a fifth gen, so now we need to make a sixth gen. And the Strait of Taiwan, that's the next area of threat. So we need like counter drone technology. Oh, boom, another research and development contract that always goes over budget and always goes past schedule and keeps needing to get appropriations. It's not just munitions, it's these like contracts to develop a bunch of stuff. Like when I was in Ranger Regiment, we field tested a bunch of like radios and like specialized field equipment that was absolute just trash, but it was a money-making operation. And of course it was completely unusable, but they spent millions and millions of dollars developing like short-range radios. Like why would we even need that? And so that's another aspect of it, but it's also something to talk about is like a lot of the CEOs or the people who sit on the board of like Boeing and General Dynamics, they have generally, if you sit on a board of that kind of major corporation, you sit on like 3 to 4 other boards, mostly in different sectors that go into healthcare, that go into real estate. So it's all of these interests converge. So it's not just the military complex. And I don't want to get like too left wing talking about capitalism, but like that is the overarching structure that rewards profit over people. And so if we have to start foreign wars to advance the interests of, real estate hedge funds that want to develop Gaza and also General Dynamics making these JDAMs dropped onto people, the interests are all converging. So we need to start looking at that too. So when people just talk about foreign lobbies, again, this is why it's so frustrating. It's like, guys, this is not the nexus of power that's determining these things. That's all.
Yeah, exactly, Greg. People, over profit and, I want everyone here. I mean, we have over 600 people. Please make sure you are following everyone on panel. We have Brian, we have Greg, we have Anthony. They are all running for both Senate and Congress. So please make sure you guys follow them and are joining their campaigns and their movement, because the power is within us, within the people, and we can make the change that we are speaking about here that we need. And I wanted to just ask, I was reading that there are possibly 3 options left here in this war with Iran. One of them is a retreat. The second option is boots on the ground, and the third is the big nuclear option. Do you see any of those options? Or is there a fourth one that you have in mind or that you can think of? And, I'll start with Brian, and then we'll go to Greg, Anthony, and then we'll also welcome Mohammed.
It's incredible how our collective conscious is coming to these conclusions all together. Like it's just last night where I was really just finding out these are the conclusions, and this is the way we're, it's going to go. And nuclear winter is such a threat to the whole globe. So all these things need to be considered so it can amp up our resistance or speaking up against this. And I don't have a fourth conclusion, but I'm all ears.
I think the person who's like the most plugged in, I've been out for a while, is going to be like Tony on what the thinking is behind here. From my perspective, it's just been a complete mess, but I'll go after him.
So what I'll say, looking at the strategy, in 2019, we, the active duty military, we're looking at So just so everybody's aware, the United States Department of Defense maintains O plans, con plans, or concepts of operations or operational plans, literally on the bookshelf of the Pentagon, like on deck to provide the president or military advisors options, anything from getting hit with an asteroid to the zombie apocalypse to massive flooding to there's O plans for the wide spectrum of things. So in the O plan or the operational plans for what a war with Iran would look like, this is something that's been on the table for years. Recently, that was taken off to look at, okay, what would this really look like if we were really going to do it, because we were serious about it, especially since it looked like we were losing influence and losing presence in Afghanistan. And I also want to say that since the United States is no longer present in Afghanistan, that drastically changes the calculus that goes into the assumptions of what this war would look. But here's what I think is going to happen in the coming weeks. The United States is going to continue to plead, pressure, and manipulate for Iran to come to some type of ceasefire agreement or to stop this war. That's going to be done through manipulation of other nations. That's going to be used through the villainization of Iran. To continue to make it look like Iran is in the wrong, to try to capitulate some type of ceasefire discussion. I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that, and to be quite honest, for if I were Iran, I wouldn't trust America either. So I don't think that that's going to happen without some serious concessions in terms of what Iran has already put on the table. If we're to negotiate, we want you out of the region entirely, evacuate all of your bases, America leave the region entirely. Israel and America recognize Iran's inherent right to missile program and a nuclear program. And 3, we want guarantees that Israel and America aren't going to do this again. Mm-hmm. So in order for that to happen, there's going to have to be other negotiators, other nations, others involved, and the U.S. won't be in the lead. Iran is not going to put up with negotiating with Jared Kushner or Steve Witkoff. So because that's a potentiality, I don't see that being the likely path. It's possible, but I don't see that happening. 1, because of the ego of Donald Trump, and 2, because of the leverage that Iran knows that they have. Iran has massive leverage in this.
Yes.
2, a ground assault. I do believe that in the coming days, we will see the United States put Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, or the MU, onto either Korog Island or somewhere in vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz. So if you look at the actual Strait of Hormuz and that 48-kilometer gap where Iran has control, both sides of the Strait of Hormuz are Iranian sovereign territory. The very tip of the Strait of Hormuz off of Oman is part of, or the UAE is part of Iranian sovereign territory. And then obviously the other side being Iran. So do I see the United States putting boots on the ground, a Marine Expeditionary Unit or larger? No. So in the Marine world, you have a Marine Expeditionary Unit. They're always afloat 24/7. They're always out with the Navy, ready to respond. Then you have a MEB, a Marine Expeditionary Unit Brigade, that's taking it up a level. And then you have a MEF or a Marine Expeditionary Task Force. That would be even larger. So do I see that the United States is going to use Marines to either put boots on the ground on Korog Island or somewhere in the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz? Yes, I think the United States is going to do that. Will it fail? Yes. The Marines that they're put onto Korog Island will be sitting ducks. Iran will have no problem with eliminating that island to prevent a U.S. incursion onto the mainland. Consider island hopping in World War II. Like, this would be the equivalent of being on Okinawa before hitting mainland Japan. They will destroy it, and along with hundreds of thousands of American lives. So when that fails, the administration will then either use that as a precursor for a larger scale invasion off of the western border between Iraq and Afghanistan, or Iran and Iraq. We're already seeing forces being staged there. Mm-hmm. And when that also fails, or the administration can then say, oh, this is untenable, we can't do it, the amount of lives lost will be insurmountable, i.e. the same rhetoric from World War II, that will be the pretense and precursor to use a nuclear weapon. The United States has these nuclear weapons. People think that that nuclear weapons only come out of a silo somewhere in the United States, or only come from a nuclear submarine somewhere deep in the depths of the ocean. That's not true. We have nuclear capable missiles, rockets, and bombs equipped and ready in the region at all times. The only thing that prevents us from using it, as we would use any other bomb, is the presidential authority or the authority from the Joint Force Commander to use them. So can we use them? Do we have them? Are they ready? Yes. Would this administration use them? Yes. So I think that we have to be clear-eyed in looking at this, to where, is the administration from today till next week going to go to the nuclear option? No. But is the administration going to continue to take steps as a precursor to then selling to America that the only option we have is a nuclear option? Yes, I do think that. And for anybody that thinks that the United States wouldn't do it, well, you know what? There's only one country in the world that's ever done it, and we did it twice. So do I think that we would? Absolutely, I think that we would. Do we have the means to do it? Yes, we do. Do we have the capability? Yes. All that this president needs right now is the pretense. His ego will not allow him to capitulate in this conflict. But even if the United States were to capitulate and say, okay, we're done. Like right now, I think the administration, we're starting to see that the administration wants to just say, hey, war's won, we're good, and walk away. Not our choice. We started a fight that we cannot walk away from. Mm-hmm. So it's either going to come at a cost of surrender or a cost of loss. And that's what America needs to wake up to.
Yeah, I think we're past the point of being able to back down. Like, I think Tony covered most of it. I just wanted to say too that this is a completely different information environment than any war that we've fought yet. And so I don't think America, if you've watched over the past few years the evolution of drone warfare and social media posts and Telegram posts over the war in Ukraine, I really don't think U.S. citizens are ready to see U.S. soldiers being taken out by drones, either on Karg Island or on the Iran-Iraq border if there are boots on the ground. Like, literally, we're going to be seeing drones, explosive kamikaze drones, flying into U.S. troops. And I don't think that's something that a lot of Americans have thought about, or what this new iteration of completely public, like almost open source warfare looks like. Second, with the nuclear option, it could also not just be our government. We could just leave it to Bibi. Leave it to Bibi. This is in one of the major position papers or advisory papers made by the Brookings Institute in 2009, called "Which Path to Persia," kind of laid out all these different options, and it's informed U.S. foreign policy towards Iran for a long time. There's a whole leave it to Bibi option that just kind of leaves it to Israel to do the really bad stuff. So there's one degree of separation. But one thing that we do need to talk about when it comes to like nuclear conflict, I live in Central Texas. This is the heartland of Christian evangelical Zionism. So right now, everyone's saying that this war in Iran is bringing closer the end times, where, you know, Jesus will come back and everybody will get raptured. And so a lot of generals and a lot of our politicians are viewing the same the Iran war in the same apocalyptic way. So the Military Religious Freedom Foundation got hundreds of different complaints at the start of the war across like 40 different installations, 40 different commands, like really big problem of officers from the captain to like almost general officer levels giving these combat readiness briefings and saying that Trump was appointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to bring about Armageddon. This was a problem when I was in the military. In kind of my unit, there were a lot of like really evangelical people who were incredibly violent and stuff. It's something we don't really talk about because this was an issue during the Iraq War as well. But all of the chaplains, many of the chaplains in the United States military now used to be like Catholic or Protestant or Unitarian or non-denominational. They are now a lot of them are these evangelical, born again, dispensationalist, quote unquote, Christians who actually believe that this is an existential fight against Islam to bring about the end of the world, where human history will end and all the believers will go up to heaven. This seems kind of crazy, maybe to you, but this absolutely informs policy too. And they definitely think that employing a nuclear weapon will bring about Armageddon. And these are serious conversations that happen and people actually believe in and support too. So that's one piece of the puzzle. I don't think it's like the most consequential piece, but it's definitely part of it. So just know that some politicians and some people within the higher echelons of command absolutely believe in this. And so when you're like, why aren't more general officers, quitting or more field grades, or resigning. Well, this has been widely reported on as being a massive issue. So yeah, a nuclear weapon would bring Armageddon forward. So there's that too. I just wanted to bring that up because it's been an issue for a while.
I think we all can agree the stage is set as we've just described. And I also would say there's probably some false flag. I'm wary of false flag event happening here in the States or somewhere that is going to spur on the already sensitive dynamic between evangelical Christians, Muslims, all the attention here that is so strong right now. A false flag event I'm very concerned about. And I hope that everybody can be mentally prepared to stay calm and try to continue to stay calm at that time.
Not fall. Yeah, not fall for it. That's where we're seeing possibly there's been, a lot of people speaking about possibly in California. You guys saw with the drones and also the U.S. Bank building with Larry Silverstein purchasing it. And it is the tallest building in that area. So, it's definitely, I agree with you, Brian. I see that possibly happening. And I really hope many people are on high alert to make sure not to fall into that not fall into that hole where they want you to be in. So that I agree. And I wanted to welcome Mo Hamza. Welcome, brother. Mo is he's the Meta hates Mo. Let me tell you, this is maybe his 45th account. I don't know. Are you still there, brother? Or you just gave up on Instagram?
Not giving up yet, but I'm not on there yet. That's 42 accounts so far.
42.
Oh my goodness.
Keep speaking the truth, brother. I mean, I know they hate it, but here we are, and we're going to continue to enlighten everyone and keep pushing forward. Welcome, brother. Go ahead.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And the thing is, I'm not too perturbed by it because it only means that what we're doing is working. So if they're trying to silence us, that is what it is. So I want to first say, I'm not here to take any time from you guys. I just jumped in a little bit later, so apologies. But I wanted to, first and foremost, say thank you to Brian, Greg, Anthony, and the like for everything that you guys do. I'm obviously friends with you guys, and I love everything that you do. I'm a huge fan of the work that you do, obviously. And I know you guys don't ask for thank yous or anything like that, but I'm just telling you from a Palestinian, I love the work that you guys do, and that you guys come from a very unique perspective that is so vital for our movement in a way. So I did want to touch one thing on what Greg said, actually, which is super vital. And if you're truly in the Palestinian movement, is not keeping that tunnel vision blinder on everything is only about Palestine, everything's only about AIPAC, everything's only about this and that. We as Palestinians know that it's all interconnected on a scary level on every aspect of it. So when we say we are all Palestinian, we mean the very collective, the collective humanity needs to open their eyes to what our corruption is truly looking like. It's not just the AIPACs. There's a ton of, money funneled in from the side that is not technically titled or designated as AIPAC funding, but it is definitely pro-fascism, pro-Israel, pro-authoritarianism, and pro-capitalism, pro all of that. So it's just important for us to really hit home that it's a much bigger picture, and that we need to take down those that are of that mindset. Epstein class is a term now for a reason, because it is the billionaire elite, capitalistic elite, that is truly running our system unchecked with complete impunity. So that is something that we as a people need to keep our eyes on and try to take that down because it's ultimately what we're fighting for. And what Iran is exposed to us right now is they have exposed the weakness that of our current administration. Like you guys said, they have entered a war that they had no idea what they're getting themselves into. When I say Iran is playing chess and U.S. is playing checkers at this point, everybody's seeing that in full broad daylight, to the point where they've even exposed the corrupt Arab leaders in the region of the Gulf region and how weak they are in terms of the leverage Iran has across globally right now. So it's really important for us to have a united front in the way we approach this. I like to say Palestine opened that door, creaked that door open for everyone. So we should thank Palestine for that and all Palestinians for that. But now it's time for us to kick that door open and fight together as a unit across multiple spectrums, not just on the Palestine front. So that's all I got to say. And I fully endorse all three of these guys, Greg, Anthony,
Yes.
and Brian. I'm giving you my full endorsement as a Palestinian. I love everything you guys do. So thanks for having me here.
Thanks, Mel. There is just one thing I wanted to say. You brought up the Epstein class and patriotism and this entire live, we've been talking about service members, like their duty is like dissent. If they really want to be patriotic, that's what they have to do now. Because we're kind of like fighting for the Epstein class right now. And like when you're going to like quote unquote fight for these dudes, you may believe you're fighting for your country, but these transnational billionaires do not believe in countries or nation states in the same way that you do. That's like peasant stuff. They have more class solidarity with a billionaire in India than they ever will with like the drowned Iranian sailors or like the dead U.S. service members in a base in the Gulf. So that's who you're really fighting for. So you may believe in your country, but these guys don't. So that's a really important point.
Wow.
To
that is
hone in on.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yes, Greg. And just like Mo said, there's almost 800 people here. If every single person went to each of Brian's, Anthony's, and Greg's campaign page and donated $5, just $5 to start, and shared it with everyone, it will make a huge impact. For Brian, it's Brian McGinnis, his name, just like you see it here, the number 4, US Senate, nc.org. For
it's
Greg.
Easier now. It's brianmcginnis.org. Sorry.
Okay, brianmcginnis.org. Okay, I saw the different one. So thank you. brianmcginnis.org. And then for Greg, it's Stoker for Texas. .com, and for Anthony, Aguilar for Congress.com. Please make sure you guys do what you can collectively. Just like Mo said, we endorse all of these amazing individuals who are speaking the truth. And I am just so proud of all of you. I wanted to see if there was any kind of last words, Brian. I know we went over the time, and I know with Anthony and everyone, but if you had, just kind of wrapping up final words for everybody here on the panel.
Taz, thanks so much. It was an honor to be a part of this. Thank you so much. And it's amazing to reconnect and see Greg and Mo and Anthony Aguilar and the daily, what's your name, sir?
Daily Rumble.
And so, yeah, it's just amazing to be able to conversate about these issues and keep them abreast in all of our minds so that we can best, resist against them and make aware everybody else.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. We are just so proud of you. I hope you are, you heal well. And I know you have some challenges coming up, but I know you and your family, you have a Palestinian wife. So I know she is at rock, and you guys will take everything on. And I am just so proud of you. Greg, did you want to say anything before we wrap up as well?
No, it was like great reconnecting with y'all and Brian, and thanks so much for everybody's support. And we're it's going to be an absolute slog until November. So thanks for helping us out, and we're all in it together.
Thank you, Greg. Anthony.
Yeah, as we go into the general elections, I know most states are finishing up their primaries. Here in North Carolina, we had ours March 3rd. So as we go into the general elections, anyone that thinks that a different Republican candidate or some fresh Democrat is going to bring change, that's more of a lie of the two-party system. Voting in a Democrat is just going to bring about the same and likely worse. The Democrats just do what the Republicans do; they just do it worse. So when you look at the options out there for third-party candidates, we are the ones that want to bring change for Americans. And why it's important that we're not taking money from any. It's not just AIPAC. AIPAC is the face of what a lot of people see right now, and yes, AIPAC is amongst the worst. But we're not taking any money from any political action committees at all. No lobbyists or special interest groups. No one will own us, because it doesn't matter what good intention you may have going into office. If you are paid for, bought, and owned by anyone, you're then not representing the people of America or the citizens you represent. So any candidate that's running for any party that is going to take money from any political action committee, lobbyists, special interest groups, or mega donors, you should look at that with a very critical eye, because they're no longer representing you. And that's our pledge. I know for me, that's my pledge. So the bottom line is we need you. Americans, the people, we need you. This election, our great chances of winning, we have a great chance of winning in our respective districts and states, is that we need you. And that's the truth. We need you, because we're saying no to corporations. We're saying no to big money. We're saying no to influence. We're saying no to being bought. So we need you.
And if I could add one more thing and say also thank you, Linda, for your great questions. And what Anthony has said to you has spurred you to find some clarity and some confidence to want to get out and vote. We are relying on the young voters to take action, get registered, and vote. That's very vital. There's so many people in our population that just don't take the effort to go get registered and vote. Please, we're encouraging you to do the administrative work to get yourself locked in, registered, so that you can show up for us, a new group of elected officials that will be free of all that money influence that Anthony just explained. And so we're very dependent upon you, the younger voter who's maybe not voted before. We need your enthusiasm. We need your political action. So we really need you to be registered for voting and vote for us come the general election.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, Greg, Anthony, and thank you, Mo, and the Daily Rumble for being with us as well. Very nice to meet you, the Daily Rumble, first time we speak, and Mo, always an honor to have you. And just before we wrap up, one question for the three of you. Brian, America first or Israel first?
America first.
Yes, sir. Greg, America first or Israel first?
America first, but not in the problematic Nick Fuentes way. That calls for mass violence and mass deportations.
Thank you, Greg. And Anthony, America first or Israel first?
Americans first.
Yes, absolutely. Americans first. So proud of all of you. And thank you to Linda, my co-host, always amazing. And I'm so grateful for you for always holding it down. Linda, I know you wanted to say one more thing.
I wanted to thank the guys for their service first and foremost. I want to thank you for being the right representation of what it is to be a patriot, a true American. To all those of you who are America first, these are the people that we need in office. These are the people we need to be making decisions on behalf of the American people, with the benefit of the people in mind, right? There's no gimmicks here, everybody. I saw comments in the chat about the Green Party and so on. It's time for us to change things, and the only way to change things is to do something different. So I definitely applaud all of you. I thank you, Brian, for being patient with me and my questions. Thank you very much.
And
thank you,
Taz, can I just say one quick thing too?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So every election cycle, we always talk about draining the swamp, right? But then every election cycle, we just elect Democrats and Republicans. We just put the same trash back in the swamp that we talk about draining. It's time to actually drain the swamp by not electing Democrats and Republicans who are taking this PAC money. So again, you have three individuals right now who have been working for us to clean up this system before they even ever decided to run for office. So the best way you can help, again, like Taz mentioned, their websites, you can go and you can donate money, but also get in touch with their campaigns because they need boots on the ground as well. So volunteers is very big in every campaign. So I definitely encourage anybody that lives in North Carolina and Texas, reach out to these guys, volunteer, give your time, get out there, knock some doors, and let's really make a change for the better, because it's not just America first, but it's America free, because we're not free anymore.
Yes.
And we got to get back to that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, the Daily Rumble. Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Just one last thing before I have to hop off. We are running federal elections, so we'll be voting on national issues that affect everybody. Therefore, even if you live in another state or another district, you can still volunteer for like phone banking, and you can still donate to the campaign if you live anywhere in the continental United States and you are a U.S. citizen. So just putting that out there because a lot of people don't know that.
Yes, please make sure everyone that is here, if you don't follow everyone that is on the panel, make sure you do. I appreciate all of you for joining in and tuning in today. I am so proud of our wonderful patriots here that are speaking the truth and are standing for America and for Americans. And I applaud all of you, and I cannot wait to see the amazing things that you are going to be doing for America and for Americans. Thank you all for tuning in today. God bless, and America first, free Palestine, free everyone, and free America.